I never imagined that a routine traffic stop could spiral into a nightmare that would shatter our lives. That fateful night, Karen cop arrested a man W/disorder for DUI and gets him in a coma. The events that unfolded would test our strength and resilience, leaving us fighting for justice and a chance to wake up from this living nightmare. Here's how it all went down. Life takes you down unexpected roads, and that night, it was a dark and winding one that led to confusion, fear, and a desperate fight for justice. I still remember the glaring lights of the police cruiser in the rearview mirror in the quiet night. My husband, a man with Tourette's syndrome, was behind the wheel, his condition under control, his driving careful and precise. His tics were barely noticeable, something I had grown accustomed to over the years of our marriage. The officer stepped out of the cruiser, bathed in the flashing red and blue. She approached with a stern look, her silhouette cutting through the darkness. "Ma'am, sir, I'm Officer Karen. I need you to step out of the vehicle," she demanded, her voice strict, betraying no sign of negotiation. My husband obliged, his movements jerky, not from intoxication, but from his neurological condition. "Officer, I should inform you that I have Tourette's," he said, trying to explain before things escalated, but it was as if the night had swallowed his words whole. "I said, out of the car! I've seen this before! You're under arrest for DUI!" Karen's declaration sent a shockwave through the still night. I protested, my voice frantic. "He's not drunk! He has a condition!" But it was like speaking to the wind. Karen's refusal to understand, her decision to escalate rather than listen. My husband, following her commands, stepped out, and that's when his body betrayed him. A tic, more violent than usual, sent him reeling. It looked bad, I admit, but it wasn't what she thought. "Sir, I'm going to need you to take a series of field sobriety tests," Karen instructed, shining her flashlight across his face, eyes squinting with suspicion. My husband, whose Tourette's sometimes made his movements appear erratic, nodded. "Officer, I have Tourette's syndrome. It might look like he began, but she cut him off. "Please start by walking in a straight line," she interjected, her words firm. I watched, my stomach tightening, as he tried to walk the white line on the side of the road. Each step was a battle, not against intoxication, but against the tics and twitches that he fought to control. His foot veered to the side, a tic pulling at his leg muscles. "You are under arrest for DUI," Karen announced with a confidence that seemed to ignore the struggle we tried to explain. "But I am not drunk! I have Tourette's!" he pleaded once more, his voice tinged with a mix of frustration and fear. Karen didn't hear, or didn't want to. Her mind seemed made up. In her eyes, his condition was a convenient excuse, and she was not a woman swayed by excuses. It was then that Karen directed him to touch his nose, stand on one leg, and recite the alphabet backward, a series of tasks that would be challenging for many. But for someone with Tourette's, it was nearly impossible under the pressure and scrutiny. The handcuffs clicked, the sound chillingly final. My husband's face, illuminated by the stark cruiser lights, showed confusion and fear. I watched, helpless, as Karen led him to her car, his gait unsteady, not from alcohol but from anxiety and the rough handling. Then the climax, the most harrowing moment. My husband collapsed. One moment standing, the next on the ground, his body seizing uncontrollably. "He needs help! He's not drunk, he's sick!" I screamed, my voice finally piercing the night, reaching Karen. The situation had spiraled into chaos. The officer, now realizing the gravity of the misunderstanding, called for an ambulance. The wait was an eternity, each second 1,000 years, each breath a prayer. The next thing we were in a sterile white hospital room, where my husband lay in a coma. The doctors said the stress and rough handling had exacerbated his condition, sending him into a violent series of tics and ultimately into a state where his conscious mind could not reach us. Karen visited, her once authoritative figure shrunken with remorse. "I was just doing my job, but I got it wrong," she admitted, her voice a whisper. "I'm sorry." After the incident, the world seemed to shrink down to the slow, persistent beep of the heart monitor and the soft whispers of nurses outside the hospital room. Days blurred into nights, and each tick of the clock was a reminder of the stillness that had enveloped my husband. In the midst of our personal turmoil, news trickled in from the outside. Karen had lost her job over the incident, the weight of her mistake too heavy for the department to overlook. Yet when she came to visit, her stance was as rigid as ever. "I lost my job over this," Karen stated plainly, her voice devoid of self-pity. "But that doesn't change the facts. Your husband's condition is unpredictable. It's a safety concern. Tourette's and driving. It's a risky mix." I looked up at her, the fight in me reignited by her unyielding words. "His condition is managed, Karen. He's been driving for years without incident. You saw his medical clearance. You're grasping at straws because you can't accept that you were wrong." Her expression faltered for a moment, a crack in her stoic demeanor. Maybe I was wrong in that moment, but it doesn't mean— It means everything, I cut her off, my gaze unwavering. It means you saw what you wanted to see that night. It means a man is in a coma because of that bias, and it means that, job or no job, you owe him, us, an acknowledgement of that truth. She didn't argue further, perhaps realizing the futility of it, or maybe, just maybe, beginning to understand the gravity of her error. But she didn't apologize, and she didn't concede. Instead, she left the room in silence, her departure as stark as the cold reality we faced. Alone with my husband again, I took his hand, tracing the lines on his palm with my fingers, a silent message of love and assurance. We'll get through this, I whispered, more to myself than to him. We'll prove her wrong together. And so, in the hush of the hospital room, with the determination that only a mix of love and righteous indignation can fuel, I began to plan for the battle ahead. Karen, jobless and resolute, had become a symbol of the fight we faced, not just for my husband to wake up, but against the misconceptions that had put him here in the first place. Wow, what a heartbreaking story. It's terrifying to think that a simple misunderstanding could have such devastating consequences. My heart goes out to the couple and their struggle for justice. Karen's mistake and refusal to acknowledge it is truly infuriating. I hope this story raises awareness about the importance of empathy and understanding when dealing with individuals with neurological conditions. Stay strong and keep fighting. I never expected that giving my boyfriend an ultimatum would unravel a web of secrets and dark family dynamics. As the truth of his stepsister's abuse came to light, our relationship took a tragic turn. Now, with legal battles and shattered friendships, I'm left wondering if I pushed too hard or if I was just a pawn in a much larger game. Here's how it all went down. My boyfriend and I have been together since high school. We met when I was 15 and he was 17, and we hit it off massively. We have always been each other's best friends. He had a strained relationship with his family due to his parents' divorce. His dad had a new family, and his mom was single and focused on him. When he was around 19, his mom remarried and his stepfather brought 2 daughters into the relationship. My boyfriend has taken to his stepsisters and is an all-around amazing older brother. That's where the biggest issue takes place. The girls were around 13 and 10 when they came into the picture, and my boyfriend would be there for them through anything. It quickly went from us having 2 date nights a week to 1 date night and 1 group babysitting session. I was fine with it for the first year, but after I graduated high school and started going to community college, I wanted more private time. My boyfriend still lived at home, and I lived with my parents. If he came over to my place, we would be able to get private time and space. My parents are cool with it, but the issue is that he never wanted to leave his sisters alone. His stepdad and mom would constantly skip town or go on trips, and my boyfriend would always offer to babysit. He said he always wanted siblings who loved him, and now he does, kind of deal. Well, this has been going on for years. I had asked my boyfriend if we could go on a trip for our 7-year anniversary because I really needed to spend time with him. Originally, our plan was for him and me to take a week-long Disney trip paid for by my parents, which would be amazing, right? He hits me with, 3 weeks before we're supposed to leave, my stepdad is saying the girls have to go with us if I'm going to go. I remember the confusion and hurt swirling inside me as I confronted him. What? That's absurd. Your stepdad's not paying for it, and neither are you. How can he dictate whether you go on our trip? He looked at me, torn, and replied, he's going through a rough patch. He's threatened to move my stuff out of the house if I leave for that long. Mom's backing him up. The solution seemed simple to me, so I offered it up without hesitation. Well, fine. Just move in with me then. My folks adore you. You know that. But he was shaking his head before I even finished speaking. I don't feel it's right to just leave my sisters and mom behind. What if I cover the cost for them to join us? I could only muster a single word, my disappointment curt and heavy on my tongue. No. The silence that followed spoke volumes more than any argument we had ever had. He got angry at me, and I explained straightforwardly that I'm tired of his sisters always being involved in our life. I understand he's excited to have loving siblings, and that he loves them very much. But he isn't their parent. He isn't responsible for them. And the fact that his mom instantly accepted the role of a parent for him and pushed the girls off on him was a significant concern. He left, angry with me. Apparently, he told the girls, the oldest stepsister, who is around 17, 18, is blowing up my phone, talking about how I'm trying to isolate him from his family, and I need to learn to leave them alone. She claims that I can't control how much time he spends with his family, and that I shouldn't tell them they can't go on a trip if they can afford it. The younger stepsister sent me a text apologizing for anything she did to make me hate them. I did not say I hate them. My boyfriend is acting like my issue is with them when my issue is with us not having a good private life together. I told both of them, copying and pasting the message from one sister to the other. I have no ill feelings towards either of you. I just wish I could spend private time with my boyfriend, who is also your brother that you live with, without you two always being there. I would love to plan a vacation with all of us at some point, but this was a vacation that was meant for me and your brother. Neither has responded to me. I sent a text to my boyfriend after it all saying, "Hey, I just need you to know that I don't hate your sisters. I love them, but I need us time. And I can't continue this relationship if you can't learn how to prioritize me as much as you prioritize them." He hasn't responded. Their stepdad called my dad and basically scolded him for being particular about how he chooses to spend his money. My dad didn't like that at all. They were friends in the past, but a few years ago, the stepdad insulted my dad in some way, and Dad hasn't wanted to talk to him since then. Dad told him to go screw himself, and my boyfriend better beg to be allowed to set foot in my house after this kind of deal. So Dad's blaming my boyfriend. I'm trying to handle that. Nobody is responding to me, and I'm just losing my shit. I contacted our mutual friends, adding a few to a group chat, and told them what's up. One of them told me that the girls were abused by their mom, and their dad is a terrible person, so my boyfriend is the only person they have to rely on in that family. But at the same time, I feel like that's partly just excuses. They said that I'm being too harsh on him, and that I can't spring this on him years after it became an issue. The others in the group chat were either big on me being too harsh on him, or really against me saying the girls are sweet, and I can't expect to punish them for me wanting more attention. Nobody seems to understand, and I'm just losing my mind. Am I wrong? Am I the jerk? BF finally contacted me. He came to my house, not texted or called. He begged my father for forgiveness for his stepfather's actions. He started crying, and my dad hugged him and brought him inside. I was angry, and I started screaming at him. My dad told me to let him speak. My BF basically admitted that his stepdad was a terrible person, and that he abused his daughters. They would go to their mothers, but she is equally as bad. He witnessed them being physically harmed by their father when they first came into the picture. His stepdad never tried anything with him because he was too old and strong, and my BF would have fought back if he had. There have been a few physical altercations between them. The sisters see my BF as their only safe space. Both of them wrote me handwritten apologies. It wasn't anything fancy, but my BF knows me well enough that a text won't be sufficient for her. If you're sorry, write it out or tell her face to face. They weren't strong enough to face me, but that's fine. I don't blame them. This situation is just messed up. My boyfriend told me that the friendships and personal situations in his life while we were growing up were his business in his eyes. He carried the burden of everything that hurt him and our friends. People always turned to him because he wouldn't betray their trust. It wasn't simply a matter of not wanting to share. It was more about recognizing the difficulty of expressing just how much pain certain things caused, or the frustration of confiding in someone only to have them become more upset on your behalf than you are for yourself. It's tough. He knew that if I ever found out about the abuse, I would have told my dad. He said this in front of my dad, who surprisingly understood. But Dad, come on, because you'd take the girl's father away from them, and unless your mother is willing to adopt them both, you'd lose the girls entirely. Dad seemed to grasp the situation before I did. The conversation lasted a few hours. My boyfriend asked me if I could forgive him, and I told him that I would only do so if things changed somehow. I asked how I could help, but he said I couldn't. He then requested to speak to my father privately, and they did. Afterward, they left for a bit. Since their return, the girl and my boyfriend have been staying at my house. The police officers have visited a few times. It turns out my dad is now protecting the kids, and my boyfriend is planning to take legal action against their father. My dad is acting as a voice of support and reason, and his influence in the community has made people listen to him. My boyfriend is currently asleep in my bed, which is the first time he's been allowed to sleep in for a while. His sisters are asleep on an air mattress in the living room. Both of them have apologized to me as well. The Disneyland incident was because they were scared to be left home alone for a week without my boyfriend there. It was simply a matter of fear, as they didn't want to be alone with their father and my boyfriend's mom. Apparently his mom has also been abusing them without my boyfriend's knowledge. They informed the police about it last night. There's a lot going on, and most of it is confusing to me. It has been a whirlwind. If the authorities permit, our trip to Disneyland will now include the entire family, including the girls. My mom and dad will take care of them, while my boyfriend and I will stick to our original plans. If that's not possible, my mom and dad have promised to be there for the girls. My mom has been teaching the youngest sister how to do braids and such, and it's been really sweet. Some of my friends are upset with me because I pressured my boyfriend to reveal many personal secrets and issues, and then I got angry at them for not telling me earlier. I know it wasn't my place to do so, but I just needed to know how much was going on behind my back involving my boyfriend. I didn't necessarily need to know, but I wanted to. He reluctantly shared the information with me, and that's entirely my fault. I didn't realize how much people relied on him. Everyone relied on him. It's disheartening to discover how much I didn't know, but it's also reassuring to know that he truly is a great guy. I will do my best to make it up to him. I'm feeling numb right now, possibly happy but still numb. My life has changed a lot too. The girls told me things I never knew, and I cried with them last night. There has been a lot of crying. We stayed up until 4 a.m. just sitting in the living room, eating snacks, watching movies, and talking about everything. They've gone through a lot of difficult experiences. Their mom was worse than their dad, but their dad was also horrible. Oldest stepsister is traumatized by driving and dislikes it because their mom would get extremely high, and when oldest stepsister was around 8 years old, she would force oldest stepsister to drive her places, which terrified her. If she didn't listen, she would be beaten. Nobody really knew that the girl's mom went to jail for drug possession, which led to their dad becoming a single parent. Within a month, he met and started a relationship with BF's mom. It seemed like he was looking for someone to take care of his daughters, so he wouldn't have to be a dad. However, BF's mom didn't want the extra responsibility, so her treatment of the girls was more neglectful and spiteful. She blamed them for their stepdad not truly loving her. The parents told BF that he had to take care of the girls, or else he would have to witness his mom neglecting them or his dad mistreating them. BF became the only reason the girls had any semblance of a normal life. They were afraid that I hated them and that I would separate them from their brother. The situation was painful, and I didn't realize I had become such a villain in their eyes. I cried a lot. Where to start? Well, some court stuff is in progress. The week after next is when things will really start to happen. The girls are allowed to live with us here temporarily. Dad says I'm not allowed to post too many details about the girls' private lives online because of privacy and legal reasons with the upcoming court stuff. So just know, things are in progress. I'll post that update once it happens. This is more about my relationship as it stands, and to clarify some information, my boyfriend only told his best friend about the situation. My boyfriend and his best friend have known each other since they were babies, so he was the one that was closer to him all along. He knew the situation, but it was hard for him to help, or for them to figure out what was best to do. A few commenters talked about why my boyfriend didn't reach out to other adults or tell others. Apparently, he tried. He told his school counselor. I can't go into more detail about what happened there right now, but the short story is that the school failed him and his stepsisters. I'll be telling you all about that in detail when I am allowed to. Friends and I are not talking at the moment. A lot of them don't understand how I feel, and I realized that they have been pretty awful to me overall. My boyfriend has gone no contact with anyone who didn't apologize to me as well, or didn't at least understand the situation and not blame me. We are starting couples counseling on Wednesday for a few reasons. I realize that I can't trust him, but I want to trust him. So I told him we need to work out these feelings through counseling. He needs to talk about what he went through with someone other than just me, his best friend, and my dad. My dad actually really pushed for therapy. We need to talk about and communicate things in a way that's controlled because right now, we're both too emotional to handle conversations. I showed my boyfriend my posts the day we decided on counseling. He originally got defensive, but after reading the comments people left where they talked about me leaving him and prioritizing myself, he started crying, like ugly, snotty, heaving crying. I've never seen him cry like that before. He gave me this super long-winded apology that was basically repeating himself over and over again until he couldn't stop through the sobbing. It was so bad that my mom came to check on us, then basically hit my room with a do not enter to the rest of the house. He talked to a few people after that. When he pulled himself together, a few friends gave me really heartfelt apologies after he explained the situation to them. Apparently, I'm really bad at explaining how I feel. I'll say that when I confronted people, I did it in a place of anger. So everyone was on the defensive instantly, and people thought I had forced their secrets out of my boyfriend in a, it's my secrets, not yours to know way. But some of our friends understood where it came from, that we are a couple. Some people are upset. They don't feel that I'm entitled to their secrets, and honestly, I agree to a degree. I promise that my boyfriend only told me things that involved him because he is my partner. Things are rocky with some people, but we don't have the time for friendships at the moment. My boyfriend is officially living with me, sharing my room with me. His stuff, valuables, consoles, etc., is in the basement at the moment, and the sisters are set up in my dad's office until we hear the result of the court stuff. If the court stuff goes our way, we'll be refurnishing the basement. People brought up some points about my dad and mom's relationship, and I talked to my dad about it. He actually agreed with everyone and talked to my mom about what she told me. Some additional context about my dad. He's like 57 at the moment. He retired early because, as he told me a few days ago, the biggest mistake of my life was prioritizing a career over my family. I did it so I could have more time with you later on, but that was wrong of me as I missed so much of your life early on. Mom apologized to me as well and said that she has some messed up perspectives based on her own experiences. She was married once before dad, and that person abused her. So she just thought she was lucky to have dad. I'm also going to be going to individual therapy sessions with the person who will be doing our couples counseling. It's really eye-opening to learn about everything that was going on behind the scenes. BF was juggling everyone else's problems, and she had no clue why she was being shut out. It's understandable that she felt frustrated and wanted more private time with her boyfriend. But now that the truth has come to light, it's clear that there were much bigger issues at play. It's heartwarming to see how BF is stepping up to protect his stepsisters and how her dad is supporting them all, wishing them strength and healing as they navigate the legal process and work on rebuilding their lives together. A year ago, my wife confessed to cheating on me after a night of excessive partying. Fueled by anger and betrayal, I set strict conditions for her to stay. But as our relationship grows dull and trust remains shattered, I wonder if my grip on her is justified. Here's how it all went down. My wife of 5 years cheated on me last year with her friend when she was out with her friend group. She used to do this often, but always came back around 12 a.m. But this time she came home very late, around 5 a.m., and drunk, and I didn't press the issue that night. She was distant and didn't talk much to me in the next few days. I only found out a couple of days later when she confessed to cheating after I kept asking her why she was so cold to me. I was shocked. I never liked the fact that she went out to bars and clubs, but she never gave me a reason to distrust her until that night. I immediately grabbed a bag, packed some stuff, and left. She was begging me to talk about it, but I wasn't in the mood for it. I was angry, upset, and sad. I know that I wasn't in the right headspace for this kind of talk, so I stayed with a friend. A few days later, I agreed to talk to her. She said she was so sorry and that it would never happen again, and that she would do anything to make me stay. I spent the time I was away thinking of staying or leaving, and I hate the fact that I still love her. We don't have kids together, but part of me still wanted to stay. I gave her certain conditions if she wanted me to stay. The first one is to never see the man she cheated on me with ever again. The second was that I could see her phone or computer anytime I wanted without having to ask. The last one was that she could no longer go out to bars or clubs without me. She agreed to all of this. Over the last year, she's been estranged from her friend group because she can't go out with them without seeing the man she cheated on me with, and she hasn't really made any new friends. I haven't checked her phone or computer either. I know she likes to go out, so I try my best to go with her when I have time. The bar and club scene was never my thing, but I try to enjoy it with her. Things haven't been the same as before, and I've thought of loosening the "she can't go out without me" rule, but I keep thinking of what she did. I've explained this to my friend, and she said I should just divorce her if I can't trust her anymore. I've thought about it. I wasn't as happy as I used to be. She says she's happy with me around, but she isn't as energetic as she used to be. So, am I the jerk? To clarify some things that were asked, our relationship before seemed pretty good. I was never the club and bar kind of person, but my wife and I enjoyed going out to different places. We were both very outdoorsy, often going camping, climbing, hiking, among many other things. We also liked taking trips around the country, and sometimes abroad. We also had date nights once or twice a week. We both work from home, so we often had a good amount of free time. We aren't wealthy, but we do fine financially. Also, to clarify something, we don't have kids, and we don't want any. When it came to our sex life, I think it was decent. We had sex 3-4 times a week and often tried new things, never involving another person though. The only thing we didn't share was her habit of going out to bars and clubs, and now to her friends. Some of you were under the impression that I told her to see none of her friends. I only told her to stop seeing the man she cheated with. At first I didn't know exactly why she became estranged with the whole group. They were all part of the friend group. I met all of her friends, including the man in question. From what I know about him, he was promiscuous. Nothing happened between him and my wife before, but I never liked the fact she went out so often with this guy, even if it was in a group setting, especially with alcohol involved. I did bring this up to her, and she told me there was nothing to worry about and that this was just insecurity talking. Our relationship now? We've gone out hiking a few times and gone out together on dates, but not nearly as often anymore. I just haven't felt the desire to. Our sex life is pretty unfulfilling as well. She's tried to initiate plenty of times, but I rarely want to. I've talked to my wife and we both reflected on our relationship. She still claims she wants to stay with me and would respect my conditions no matter what. I asked her what she would do if I let go of the conditions. She told me she's truly ashamed of what happened, and she said she probably wouldn't go to a club or bar alone anymore. I asked about her old friends, and she told me that she doesn't want to be their friend anymore. She told me that they thought she was being unreasonable for not wanting to see the guy anymore, and that's just how he is. Basically, they refused to cut the guy off, and they didn't like that my wife had a problem with him. I never asked her about this before, because I didn't care about how my condition was met. All that I cared about was that it was met. I've opened up a bit more, and how our life now is pretty dull. She said she's aware our relationship isn't the way it was before. I asked her if she wants things to change, but she said she doesn't feel that she has the right to ask me for anything. She said she's aware it's her fault our relationship is like this. I mentioned couples therapy, and she immediately said that it was a good idea. I still resent her, but from what I can tell, she does want to make this work. I can't fully trust her yet. I still remember when she first said that there was nothing to worry about. We decided to start couples therapy. I'll be honest though, the only reason I'm willing to do this is because she has followed my conditions for a year, but I don't think this is going to help me trust her ever again. If therapy doesn't work, then I'll leave. Honestly, considering their attitude towards the situation, it may be best to distance oneself from both the friends and the person involved in the affair. While it is commendable that she took responsibility for her actions and confessed without being caught, it is important to remember that trust is crucial in any relationship, and cheating can severely damage that trust. It's positive to hear that you are open to trying therapy, as it may provide clarity on whether the relationship can be rebuilt and lead to happiness. Ultimately, the decision to continue or end the relationship will depend on the outcome of therapy and your own personal well-being. Best of luck to you, OP. Imagine working at a shelter for DV victims, where your coworker seems to live a carefree life, traveling the world and refusing to work full-time. But behind her seemingly perfect facade lies a dark secret, and as tensions rise, the truth starts to unravel. Here's how it all went down. I used to work at a local shelter for domestic violence, DV, victims. This was not my full-time job, but I was trying to gain management experience to complement my Master of Public Administration, MPA studies, with a focus on leadership and nonprofits. The shelter had 12-hour shifts categorized as day and night. On weekends, there were typically only 2 staff members overseeing a fluctuating number of residents, ranging from 20 to 60 individuals. Security was limited during weekends and nights, relying on cameras, security gates, and a positive relationship with the local police. The weekday staff included case managers and managers, while weekends primarily involved answering hotline calls, handling crisis situations and emergency intakes, and maintaining order among the residents. These responsibilities did not necessitate extensive follow-up. I would work one weekend shift, usually on a Saturday night, 8 p.m. to Sunday 8 a.m., or during Sunday day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., ensuring it did not interfere with my full-time Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. job. I did this for about a year and met several awesome co-workers, many who are still there. One was named D. D also only worked on-call shifts like me, usually 2 shifts a week, to fill in as needed for gaps with the other full-time employees or when people were sick. It's a pretty easy job like I described above, and if she would pick up just 1 more shift a week, she would technically be full-time as well and entitled to paid time off, PTO, and benefits. She always refused. I didn't really get to know Dee very well when I was at the shelter, mostly because she was always traveling. I think the entire year I was there, if I remember correctly, she was in Europe when I started, came back about 6 weeks later and worked a month or so, then left for 6 months to India, came back for 2 to 3 months, and then left again to go to the Himalayas right before I quit. Dee looked around my age, or maybe only a few years older than me at most, so I figured she was also still in school, and probably taking advantage of study abroad programs and generous student loans. However, after I stopped working at the shelter, the burnout is real, y'all, I kept in touch with other coworkers and found out more about Dee. As it turns out, Dee had already graduated from school and was a good 15 years older than me. Dee also had 2 master's degrees, paid for by her parents, no student loans, speaks 4 languages, and does not work any other jobs. She never worked at the shelter full-time. She always travels at least 6 months out of the year. So apparently, if you never work hard, travel a lot, and hardly ever experience stress, you do not appear to age. For your information, celebrities are on to something. It is unclear how she affords to travel, except that she doesn't need to pay rent. Dee's father purchased a 2-bedroom condominium locally and allowed her to live in the smaller bedroom while renting out the larger one for many years. The condominium is located on the beach and has been a great investment. Even with a roommate, Dee, the rent she received covered the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. However, her last tenant was a male whom Dee fell in love with. They dated and the rent was still paid, and years went by without Dee seeing her father or her boyfriend and tenant seeing his landlord. During this time, Dee apparently moved into the larger bedroom, and the smaller bedroom became trashed. Tragically, the tenant passed away several years ago. Dee's father allowed her to continue living there for free. However, last year he finally visited the condominium to prepare it for renting again. I believe Dee mentioned that she was hoping to retire and rely on the rent as his only retirement income, but I'm not certain about that part. Apparently, he was disgusted to see the shape it was in. It was a wreck. There was mold damage from recent hurricanes that Dee did nothing about, and lots of repairs were needed. Dee, who is in her mid-40s, had an elderly father who had to make the repairs himself. For weeks, Dee came to the shelter, complaining about how her dad was going to kick her out and she would be homeless. According to my former co-workers, she even told this to residents who would become very concerned for her and offer her places to stay. However, she kept turning everything down. The shelter manager offered her a full-time position, but she declined, saying, "No, I can't work full-time. I need to travel." Every reasonable offer, such as renting a room, getting a job, even in the travel industry, or getting another part-time job, was not acceptable to her. Despite her vast education and language skills, she refused to work, claiming that she needed to be able to travel. She would follow all her excuses with stories of how abusive her dad was, but when asked for an example, she wouldn't respond, and instead would rant about him having toxic energy. Even when someone suggested, "Well, sleep in your car then," she countered with, "But I'll have to sell my car. How else can I travel? I have to get away from here. I can't stand this negative environment." She would then slump against the wall, as if fainting from hunger or something. Talk about a drama queen. She's also one of those people who think crystals have souls. She can see cancer. Ghosts can talk to her, etc. So I don't blame my friends, former co-workers, for tuning her out if she gets on a roll about her father's negative orbs rotating in the wind, sucking her soul out or whatever. I'm sad to say this all happened last October 2022. She apparently bullied her dad into letting her stay at the condo and sold him some sob story about still grieving the loss of her boyfriend from several years ago, his last tenant. So he said fine. He understood that she needed to go on another soul-searching vacation, and she left. Again. She went to India for about 5 to 6 months. The condo sat unused, unrented. Don't know why her stuff couldn't go into storage while she was gone, and the condo rented out. If you ask me, she's the abusive bully, depriving her dad of that potential income from his own property. She told everyone at work, the shelter, that she wasn't coming back, but by this point, they were getting used to her stories. So when in late spring they told me, "Hey, guess who's back?" I wasn't surprised. She wasn't going to give up a job where she did nothing but got tons of attention from residents, which is sad because they have their own problems and enough to worry about. What was surprising was that Dee's father apparently told her last year when she left that she had a year to get her life together. However, Dee has not done so. She continues to work only 2 shifts a week. Additionally, she continues to date married men, although this is not really relevant except as another example of her woe is me sob story, as they never leave their wives and she always ends up getting hurt. Furthermore, she plans to leave in a few months to travel again because she claims she needs to. Recently, Dee's father has returned to either sell or rent out the condo. Dee has been telling people at work that she can't believe her father won't sell it and give her half of his money, after all she's done for him, which is unclear. Once again, she is sobbing about being homeless and claiming she will have to move in with someone temporarily as she cannot afford rent. She plans to stay there for only 2 weeks before leaving and never returning. So here we go again. She's refusing to work more than 2 shifts a week, refusing to ever pay rent, and leaving for her 6-month vacation around the world, claiming to never come back again. But the reason why I'm venting today instead of rolling my eyes like usual is because my former co-worker that does still work with her finally had it with Dee, and earlier today, she attempted to put Dee in her place. Several of the shelter workers right now are all going through hard times and AMP. Dee works with them. There are a handful that have close family members with recent stage 4 cancer diagnoses, and/or that are taking care of elderly, live-in disabled parents, and/or that are working at the shelter full-time, 36 hours or more a week, while fighting their own chronic health problems and/or debilitating diseases, all of which Dee is aware of. Yet they all come to work without complaint, and they manage to pay their own rent/mortgage. So to listen to her whine about how unfair it is that her father is requiring her, a healthy woman in her mid-40s, to pay rent or be evicted is insulting to them. And to listen to her whine about how this will affect her lifestyle and ability to travel for 6 months every year is particularly insulting, especially since most haven't been able to take a vacation in months, let alone have ever been able to take a trip outside the country. So this was brought up today, and I'm going to copy and paste Dee's exact response, or copy and paste as it was texted to me at least. We're all going to die one day, not just you guys, and I don't know when my last day on Earth will be, so I have to process and figure things out, and besides, I'll have to move home and care for my mother in 10 years or so too. Dee never actually works on her shifts. She does not do the intakes. She does not answer the hotline calls. If she's forced to answer the phone, she actually asks the person to call back tomorrow. Can you imagine? A DV victim needing shelter, and because that means paperwork for her, she usually asks them to call back when someone else is working. This happens multiple times on each shift. She had a meltdown last week because she was asked to make up a bed for an incoming resident, and I do mean an actual meltdown, complete with hyperventilation, hand-wringing, and tears. Despite Despite the fact that the shelter keeps the clean sheets, pillow and pillowcase in an actual bed in a bag set, so it's just a matter of grabbing one and literally making a bed. However, Dee is very good friends with the manager, so she gets paid to do nothing but sit there. Whoever is on shift with Dee does all the work. I found it amusing that Dee was actually named Employee of the Month on Monday, after the making a bed fiasco. When I can bet my entire supply of leftover Halloween candy that Dee has not completed an intake packet in over a year. There is a reason I no longer work there, and a reason why Dee does continue to work there. Where else would she ever find a job that allows her to be that lazy? This issue should be raised to the authorities since a DV home is a crucial and safe place for abused women. It's important to ensure that it operates efficiently and effectively, providing the necessary support and protection to those who need it the most.